Hi, I'm Mike.
I'm Josh.
I'm Angela.
I'm Nick.
I'm Tyler.
And
this is
NFGeeks. All right, you guys. Thanks once again. This is the entire range of NF consciousness, and this is an entire NF Jedi Council. And this episode is a topic that I love as an NF, and it's very important to NFs because NFs are very into this. And that is the concept of love and romance and soulmates and all that stuff that we always think about in terms of love relationships. So let's just start off with I guess we'll start off with romance. We'll go into romance first, and talk about what your feelings and thoughts about that. When I say romance, what am I saying, and what do you think about as NFs?
Idealist.
Yeah. Imagine like the cavalier, like being a cavalier, gentleman type person, which I think is important.
It is important. It's very important. You all have to remember that. The thing that makes me think, when you say romance, like romanticizing something, that's what makes me think of it. Because no matter what goes on, like, I've been with my Mike for 4.5 years, and it's one of those things where when you've been with somebody for so long, you almost lose that a little bit. And it's funny because you almost, I don't know, it makes me think that, like, yes, I love you, but at the same time, I want you to be more, like, romantic, bring home flowers, or, let's just go out on a date for the fun of it. Even though we've been together for 4 years, there should still be dates and doing stuff randomly, and, it makes a difference, too, when you live together or when you don't live together. You really can't do that as much when you're living together.
I was talking about this too the other day. It's funny because they were saying, like, I was talking about it with a girl, and they were saying how, like, guys, like, don't do as like good of stuff like later on in the relationship as they do in the beginning. And I'm like, well, there's a reason for that. It's because your sex gets worse. Like, girls, like, no,
so
I'm being
you're trying
serious.
to make
Like,
up for
no,
it?
listen, I'm not trying to be a jackass, but like, it's true. Like, in the beginning of a relationship, like, girls will do crazy stuff, like, to show you, like, that they're the shit in bed. But, like, later on, they do less, like, crazy, like, experimental stuff. Like, they just give you, like, the regular stuff.
My
so
Lord.
it makes you less passionate, and so you, like, do less passionate things for them. But if they gave you the crazy throughout the whole relationship, then you guys would get, like,
But what about
you
the
guys would get the Prince Charming.
But
so
what about
cynical.
the opposite way around?
It's not cynical, it's true.
But what about the opposite
Thank
way
God.
around? If anything, you should be doing nicer things, because as relationships
Yeah,
go
but when
on,
you don't get the bone after a while, like, the dog starts coming when you call his name.
oh my goodness.
That's a very NF thug answer.
Oh God, that was awful.
All right,
Hey,
well,
I love rose petals and the whole game shebang too, but it's
I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about, like, instead of making dinner and just hanging out at home and doing nothing, like,
I'd much rather go out anyway.
But some guys aren't like that after a while. Some guys aren't like that after years and years and years, or even 25 years married when you have kids and
I
stuff.
love spontaneous stuff, like anything crazy, like I'm down for it.
yeah, that's
I
a
hate
good,
routines.
To me,
go ahead.
it's about dynamics, and part of what both of you guys said is exactly like what I've kind of like thought for years is like you want to love like 80% of like the person you're with or what you're doing like that, but there has to be 20% of like boring shittiness, don't understand, but the 20% needs to be kind of like
Spread out.
Yeah,
like 1% at a time.
Exactly, because what happens is that it's just human behavior and human emotion to just wanna, if you're just doing, crazy freak all the time, then
It gets tiring.
It gets
No,
in
I
a way.
don't think so.
But in a way, what happens is desensitization. I don't mean actually physically. I mean who knows?
Emotionally.
Just as a person, desensitization will eventually set.
I love
in.
that I'm the only woman
So
in
you
Mike,
this
just
group
need
it sounds like you
the
have a comment. You
dynamics.
might as well chime in because there's never been a point where you've been so fidgety.
Dynamics is all I'm saying. 80% good, 20% bad, spread out.
I'm seriously interested in what needs to come out of Mike's mouth right now.
Well, I'm giggling because on some level I think Josh is right. You know, that's or let me say it this way: it's not that he's right, but I've had the same.
On a small
experience.
level, I have a really good point.
Yeah,
I'm
let me say
not
it that
saying
way.
that you don't have
I've
a good
had the
point.
same inductive experience. All right, I have another. All right, so on the same vein, then, let me ask you this, and what I'd like to know from each of you is what is the most romantic experience you ever had? Either one that you actually did, or one that you experienced back to you, or third party, like you saw something romantic that took place. But ideally, what is the most romantic thing that you've been personally involved
It's hard.
in? Yeah, I know it's deep. Go ahead, you can share.
I'm just trying to think of like would you want to know like a real life story or my opinion of what would be the
Well,
most?
ideally real life, but you could go with what you think. You could go with the ideal, like this is what I wish would happen. If you don't have one and you've been screwed your whole life, and you're
Well,
an NF crying, like what's
Let's
it
go
gonna
with the
happen?
idealism then, because you know.
All right, that's fine. You can go there.
I don't know, like.
I got one.
Go ahead.
All right.
It's a series of little things, and like, I always try like. So I've been going out with someone, my girlfriend, for 8 years, and one thing I always strive to do. This isn't just one instance, but it's one concept. Is that every single day, I like do my absolute best. We live together and everything, to try to make her laugh as close to hysterical as possible. And like I always have made a point to do. That's like a conscious thing. So I can't think of like one instance, like one thing, but like that's something I was like, if I can just make her laugh like every single day, somehow, even if it's fake, I just like need that for both of us. And that's something I've done.
But that's a good thing, though.
Can we like stop for confirmation real quick? Did you just say 8 years?
Yeah.
8 years, buddy.
God bless you. I can't do 8 months, and that's
God
a
bless
fact.
me indeed. Hell yeah.
Can't do 8 months, and that's a fact.
I did
yes.
7
Wow.
before the
Commitment.
4, so it's the
Well,
same thing.
it goes back to
Oh.
what I was saying. Every day I've tried to do certain things and just to like remove myself from it, like to some extent, so I can keep it going. Because I understand, like I said, it's like sweet and sour, you know. Like
Does 8 count if there was more than one person, like say 2 or 3?
No, it
Number
doesn't
8,
count.
does
it was been straight years. It's
What
been
if you
3
like
years.
broke up and like had a little
That's
bit of
called
fun?
an on and
There's-
off. That's
That's
called
an on and off, so you can't put that
That's
time
not
together.
consecutive.
What if you take out the time that you weren't together?
That's
just
not
now?
consecutive.
No? All right.
Doesn't
All right,
count.
what's so
Consecutive
romantic
years.
about that? I mean, my gosh.
There is nothing romantic about it, but I mean that's.
All right,
kind of
does
the
that
point
mean
of it.
that some of you have a romantic void, meaning like there's not enough romance or something happened?
I
You
don't
wish
know.
there were more?
I don't
Yeah.
know what it is.
It's too idealist, so we just always something better, or it's just worse. We always see it in like those two.
I think as humans we do that in general too. Is
Yeah.
this is nice, but it would
I
be
just think
nice
it's,
if
like,
this
amplified.
happened. It
Right,
would be
so
nice
it's
if
even,
this
so there's
happened.
always like, alright, so does that mean
Grass
there's
is always greener.
Right, so
One
you'd
of
be in
those
this
things.
nice restaurant, this little place, this little, this little cafe, and you'd be like, the candle has too much wax coming off of it.
No,
that would be-
it's like
That's a
my
little too,
my good
detailed.
friend Big Sean always says, the grass is not always green on the other side. It's greener where you water it. And remember that.
Interesting.
The grass is greener where you water it. It takes work, people.
Yes,
You
no,
have
you're
to
right,
work.
yeah.
You have to work at romance too. That's the other thing. Romance doesn't just like fall out of it. You can't just be with somebody and then a romantic thing happens. It has to be work. You have to like try and
Yeah,
You
set it
gotta
up.
want it to be romantic.
I agree. It's like the biggest problem that either NFs make or just anybody is that whether it be like work that you love, person that you love, anything. There's like the essence of love is like also different. Is the opposite of love would be either hate or whatever.
But those two
Loathing.
lines are fine.
And the
They're
two lines
not
are
far
fine.
away.
They're
And the
only
thing is
fine for
that
you.
if it's a spectrum, it's the kind of spectrum that just goes like.
It can twist in
It
a
doesn't.
second.
Yeah, it doesn't do this. Like each end of the pole just reverses instantly. So you gotta like the one thing like romance, work, anything that you love, like to make it work is you gotta freaking try hard at it. Because if it's getting bad or whatever, like that's you gotta work
Shouldn't
through
just
it.
bail.
Yeah, and yeah, the people who are failures at anything, that includes passion, are the ones that don't get through the hard time. And if you don't get through one hard time and you just leave it unresolved, another hard time's gonna go on that, and it's gonna snowball.
It's probably why there's such a high divorce rate too, because people rush into the I love you, I want to get married, but then when the work actually starts to kick in,
They don't want it.
this group of generations that has gone on has started to slowly deteriorate, and I think that's why divorce rate is so high too, because there's a lot more work and we don't want to do it.
All right. Then this then leads to my other question, and this is something I'm always talking about, and I would like to hear your opinions, both maudlin and idealistic, on the concept of soulmates. Okay. One of the ideas that's connected to NF is
We have this
that we
combination.
either have soulmates or create soulmates, but there's a special depth of relationship that goes beyond work. Doesn't mean that you don't do work, but there's something sort of deeper and mystical going on with that deep relationship where you're with somebody on a soul level, whatever that means metaphorically. So, have you found your soulmate? You haven't found your soulmate? What do you think your soulmate is? What would your soulmate look like? Let's hear about your soulmates.
I'm interested to hear
Well,
from
I
you.
think
Yeah,
I
no
think I
kidding.
had this conversation with you before.
Yes.
Like the very first video. I don't think a soulmate necessarily has to be like a lover, or it doesn't have to be someone of the same sex or the opposite sex. I think it's just, I call it your person. They're your person. Like when you're in trouble, when you go to the dark, twisty place, like there you call them. Like I think that couldn't be a soulmate. Like, it doesn't have to be that. It could be a lover, but like I don't think it's confined to that one
That
person.
could be a friend.
Yeah, it could
And
be
it
a
could be
friend
multiple.
too.
It doesn't have to just be one-on-one, it can be.
Right, like that person that like you know is always gonna be there for you, and you're always willing to help them out. You know they got your back.
Yeah, you can
Like
have multiple soulmates, yeah.
we're gonna hurt somebody, whose car we're gonna take person, like that. They're your person. That can be your soulmate.
It's an interesting thought on that.
To me, the thing about like a soulmate is also like a true soulmate, whether it be a friend or friends or a lover or anything, is that you give every single thing that you have for that person without expecting anything back, and without you even expecting it or without you even knowing it, they give the same amount back to you and they feel the same way. It's mutual. The difference between like lust and love is that love is mutual and lust is just one way. You're not getting anything out of lust, or both people aren't getting anything out of it.
You're not giving.
Exactly, yeah. When you're in true love, it's you're giving everything you have to that thing.
I think it's the
That
opposite. I
thing's
think you're getting without giving in lust.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
That's right.
But
Yeah.
what I'm saying is, love is mutual. You're giving everything you have without expecting anything in return, and without you even expecting it, you get everything from them without them expecting anything in return. That's
I like that. That's a good measuring stick. I think that's good.
What do you feel about this? Because like with INFPs, I've always wondered what like they feel towards soulmates and.
Yeah.
I think the idea, like, people just take it too far, and I kind of think it's BS. But, like, I mean, I can understand it, and
That's
I can
cool.
like when you connect with someone, especially, it doesn't even have to be like a lover, and it could just be a friend. I've had friends that were like really good, like, we just connected and understood each other automatically.
Yeah, it's just organic. It's
Yeah.
Just,
Well, that
You really
leads,
don't have to put much effort into it.
Yeah. So let me ask a question then about this issue of soulmates, and that is, have you met actual soulmates, in whatever way you want to connect it? Do you think have you actually felt, yes, this person is my soulmate because in whatever, romantic or otherwise? Have you had soulmate connection?
No.
I'd say so, but I just wouldn't call it that.
Okay.
Because I think if it's only going one way, it's not a soulmate. So I'd say no.
no, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have no person that you feel personally connected to on a level that's deeper than nothing. You got
I
nothing
do.
on it.
Well, I mean, I might feel that way towards them, but that doesn't mean they feel that way towards me. Or
You've
vice
had no
versa.
confirmation of
Or
it.
vice versa. They may feel like I'm that for them, but they're not that for me.
So you've never had that confirmation either
Okay,
way.
therefore
Not
they're
a
not
real
your,
one.
okay, so therefore
That's
they're not your
infatuation.
soulmate. They're making a mistake, or you're making a mistake.
Yeah, but
The
that's-
soulmate would know each other, I think.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So you have none.
No, I feel like
I
I
can't have one if I'm not with that person. Then there would be no, right? Because if that person existed, I would be with them.
Well, all right, not
That's
necessarily
not love,
romantically.
Or that's what I'm saying. I would have them as a friend. I would know who they are, and I don't. So I'd say no.
Okay. All right. What about the rest of you?
My answer is yes, and mine is romantically, just because My fiance's been, I've known him since I was 10. I mean, we've known each other. We didn't talk for a few years, and then we still had a connection that I never really understood. And that's the weirdest thing about it, is we've been together for a few years, and I still can't comprehend how well everything seems to connect. Like it instantly, at any point in time, whether we're doing nothing or out or not out or just sitting around doing nothing, I feel like I can say anything, do anything, talk to him about anything, get his opinion on anything, and I understand it. And I feel like that's what my connection is with the soulmate, is understanding what each other is almost thinking and feeling, but still being able to make a connection as far as not romantically. Like, I feel like he's my best friend on top of it. So that's my feeling on it.
Nice.
Do you guys feel like you could kind of like predict based off type or something? Like there'd be, like you could match up someone more easily that way.
My kind of philosophy on like types being compatible, and this is controversial, so I mean whatever. But I feel like there's two kinds of like things. I feel like if your judging functions are in line with each other, like if both people have extroverted feeling, both people have extroverted intuition, I feel like the judging functions really have a lot to do with communication, and communication being very fluid and natural. And then the other thing I feel is when, say, you either have like ENFP, INFJ, and the preferences are all like, first, second, third, fourth, but they're in different directions. That's kind of what I've seen, but that's only in theory. Like, that's all.
It's funny that you said that, because that's what my boyfriend is. He's an INFJ, and I'm an ENFP.
Yeah, my girlfriend is ISFJ, and we have the same judging functions in the same place. And like, I always say this about each other: we might not exactly like the same things, but we hate the same things, and we communicate exactly the same way.
Well, that's good.
And it freaking works, and it works.
Right. This kind of leads me into a more personal and intimate topic, but I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it. But I'd like to talk a little bit about sexuality in NF, and how everything we've talked about thus far connects to your ideas of sexuality as an NF.
Why you roll your head and look at me?
Because you're the one who brought up sex in the first place.
Well, yeah. Well, I don't know. It's definitely important. I think it's one of the more crucial parts of a relationship. If you don't have that intimate connection, it's not going to work out in the long run, I don't think.
Do you guys feel like being either introvert or extrovert has something to do with
Oh,
it?
having NFs has to do with it, because NF action is intense. Let me tell you.
It is. It is. It is. I feel like I have almost like because I'm so emotionally connected to everything in my life, I feel like I'm almost a little timid on the sexuality, because I feel like
You put too much into it or something?
I don't feel like I'm one of those people where I don't feel like what I'm doing is either good enough, or that me personally is not good enough for the situation. I don't know why. I've always had that, like with any boyfriend I've ever had, I've always been like very timid about like showing off any part of my sexuality, like even showing off bathing suits or something stupid like that.
Don't be shy. We'll love it regardless. Don't be shy.
That's what all of my guy friends say.
But don't be shy.
Well, what kind of where are your sensitive spots? That actually, Angeli, that's jogged that out of my brain. And I don't mean you have to tell actual specific things, although you could. But where do you feel sort of your Achilles heel as an NF sexually?
Like
Or
where you feel
sexually?
vulnerable or something?
Vulnerable, or a place where you could get really hurt if this was hit in a sexuality
We're thinking the same.
idea.
Your balls, right?
No, I don't know. I don't think anything. What do you mean?
Alright, is there any sexual situation where your heart would break or your NF values would be violated and you'd have to say, whoa?
Well, I think anytime if you're getting intimate with someone on that personal level, I feel like that's something really private that should just be between those two people. So if somebody was to share those type of private intimate moments with other people, I think that's not cool, that's not okay. But at the same time, it doesn't like. I think that's probably the thing that would offend me the most. I think if it happened to me, but at the same time, like I don't really care because whether what they're saying is true or not. Like I was there, I know what happened. Like you know what I mean. It
Like you
doesn't-
care, but you don't care. You don't
I-
care what's
It's
coming
probably the
out,
thing
but it
that I
sucks
care about the
because-
most, but I don't care about what that person is saying so much as the fact that they're doing that.
That they're saying it in general.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of how I am too. Like any exes that I've had, that if they were to share things about me, like I feel like one of my, because, and I mean some of it's because of my emotional too, is that I feel like I have a lot of sensitivity towards how I feel about my body, and a lot of that has to do with being bullied when I was younger, and I feel like that connection kind of hurts me a little bit, because even now with somebody I've been with who I know loves me, I still feel like that little bit of, maybe that's why I'm so timid about it, because I feel like, being mocked over, like I literally have had an ex who just said everything about anything that he and I have had in personal moments to other people, and that makes me upset, because it almost seems like, especially when it's an aggressive or to be hurtful on purpose, that's one of my like serious things. That's an emotional thing to me, because that's a betrayal in my eyes.
And see, and a lot of times stuff like that though, like it doesn't like you said, like the action bothers me more than the thing, because most of the time what they say are lies anyway. I mean, sometimes it's not, but most of the time it is.
Yeah.
So it's not the actual thing that they said.
Do you guys equally hate like being asked those types of questions?
What do you mean?
Like if someone asked you about like you and someone else.
I don't like.
Yeah, same.
It doesn't like. I don't hate that they asked me the question, but I'm not gonna tell them anything about it. I'm just gonna be like, nah, I don't talk about that stuff. It's this, because I always give like the answer like, I personally don't care, but I didn't have sex with someone who doesn't exist. You know what I mean? It's disrespectful to the other person. That's my point of view. Like I don't care if you want to ask about me, but I'm not gonna tell you stuff that I did with someone else because they're not here. They're not here to defend themselves or talk for themselves. It's disrespectful for them. That's why I wouldn't say anything. But as far as if you want to ask me something personal about me, like something that I like to do or whatever, like that's different. I'm talking about myself. I don't care. But if it involves someone else, that's when I put the brakes on it, because
When it's specifics.
Yeah.
When it's specifics about a person.
You don't like to be talked about, but you don't like to talk about others. Just
Yeah, it's not like
love.
it's not
Right.
like it's the opposite. Like I'll talk about it, but I don't like you talking about me.
Yeah.
It's you can even talk about a situation around me and it won't make me uncomfortable. And even I grew up with guys, so I know that it can be that part of conversation sometimes. But at the same time, one of the things that's a peeve is when you do it in a malicious way. Like you're saying it in like a disrespectful manner. When you said it, that's the only word that sticks in my head as being disrespectful, because there is a line of being respectful and being disrespectful, even if you're talking about sexuality or you're talking about situations like if you're telling one of your closest guy friends about something that happened between you and a girl, like especially if it's somebody you care about and want to be with, then it's one thing to be talking about it excited, but it's another thing to be in a room full of guys telling everybody your romps and your triumphs, so to speak.
Talking about the slam pieces.
Yeah.
All right. Then let's. We have a good chunk left to talk about then the big issue here that relates to all this, and that is the issue of love. Love on any level. Love of another person, love of humanity, love of nature. Any kind of love. So, what does that mean to you? I say the word love, and how does that land on you and connect with you?
Can I look up the thing that my friend said about me and read it?
Okay, while someone else answers, yeah. So what else do the other you guys have to say about love?
It kind of goes back to what I said earlier, is that it doesn't just have to be with a romantic partner. It can be with friends. I think I said this in the first video we did was, I love the hobbies that I do. I love the interests that I have. I love my friends, romantic partners, whatever. That's, like I said, it has to just be mutual for it to be true love. You have to give as much as you can without expecting anything. In turn, you get it back. They feel the same way, and that's love. What do you have to read?
Well, I was texting my friend who was also an ENFJ, and I was just talking to her, and I was explaining to her I don't know if it's that I don't like believe in love or if I just don't want it, like I'm running away from it. I don't know if I'm running towards people or like, because I always have this affinity for like being with people that are like kind of have like messed up issues and I know about it. So I think like maybe I'm like going out with like messing around with those people because like I know it's gonna fail. So like I don't have to worry about like what's gonna happen because I know it's not gonna last. So she said this about me, like what she thinks about me, and she said, "You fall into lust with people, then you fall in love with the idea of the people, and you develop these feelings for them in hopes that they'll be what you're looking for, and then you realize something about them as to why it'll never work, and you become like whatever about the situation, and you move on to the next person." And I think that that's probably sums up everything about my love life.
So you agree? So you're in agreement?
When
this
she
ENFJ
I think it's-
connected
This was
into
like
consciousness.
ENFJ consciousness, and I texted her back. I was like, "Wow, this is exactly fucking right. You just blew my mind. Like that was amazing."
I think it's an NF thing
It's like
too.
a revelation.
Well, it's an NF thing too, and even like with me, I always had either whether it be friends or boyfriends or whatever, that there's always been some kind of connection where my family tells me that I like to fix people. So I always have a lot of people in my life who need to be fixed to the point where it's, almost like I have that connection where without them even telling me what the issue is, I have that connection to say, I know that you're a good person, but you have a lot of messed up things going on in your life, and I feel like I can help you. But even it gets me into trouble because sometimes it'll be with somebody that I know I can't help, then it frustrates me even more. And at that point, I've already gained that. And going back to the idea of love doesn't even have to be a person in general. It could be a situation or a thing. Like, to me, love is when you have a feeling about something that you can't live without. You can't do without it. Like, I love music. I love animals. I love my animals. I don't know what I'd do if I didn't have them. They're like my children right now until I have real ones. And it's even people and the idea of things. Like, I love to just listen to music and get the connection, and it makes me feel like if I hadn't just listened to that, that's a little piece of my life that wouldn't have just happened. And same thing with people. I love everybody that comes into my life because for one reason or another, they affect me at some point, and I affect them. So that comes back to me also.
Yeah, that's I knew there was something else that I was thinking about when I was
Maybe it kind of transferred to my brain and kind of added to my
Yeah,
sentences
yeah.
a little bit.
And that's it too. Like the second, like I felt like the first part of love was like it being mutual. I was like, what else was there? And I couldn't remember. And it's what you can't live without. And that could also be infatuation. But again, when both of you can't live without each other, then that's also love. Like, in my opinion. Interesting. Yes.
Well, we only got a few minutes left, so and again, what a way to end, is I'd like you to talk about then heartbreak, because this sort of connects. And what are your experiences? How have you been heartbroken? How did it feel, or what thoughts do you have about heartbreak?
I want to hear from FI, like really.
See previous
I feel
videos.
like NF, like love in relationships, like horrible and not always horrible, but they're so passionate that like when they like break, it's
It
just
ends
like
tragically.
Yeah.
It's just tragic and horrible, and it just makes you feel awful inside, and feels like the whole
a Greek
world
tragedy,
ends.
yes.
Feels like the whole world ends to you, even though it's something, even just like soft relationships, not even like lover relationships or anything. It's just like heartbreak.
Yeah.
And when you say heartbreak, you're just like literally. I feel like my heart
Your
broke
chest
a little
is
bit,
just
to the point where you get almost physical pain. There are some people that have, issues where they actually feel physical pain, and it's awful.
Yeah.
And it could be for any reason. It could be
Well,
that you
that's
broke up
happened to
with
me.
somebody,
Yeah.
or even when somebody passes away. That's happened to me when my grandfather died, because I was lucky enough to have all my grandparents until just recently. And when my grandfather died, like I literally had like pain in my chest for probably 2 weeks, and it was just like this, just constant gnawing pain. And I think maybe that's also because I'm a much more emotional person than
Yeah, so
most
you
other
kinda, like,
people. So I
extroverted onto
carry
yourself,
it with me, but I
yeah.
also push it out so other people understand that like this is my bubble of emotional horribleness. So you might want to stay away for a little
For
bit.
me, when it gets like that bad, it's almost like paralysis. I can't move.
Like you freeze up
I
about
don't go
it.
anywhere.
I've heard that like INFPs have like the worst like
Yeah, it's
physical
horrible.
pain like, when it comes to like
you like crack
emotional.
and it just like falls apart.
shit. See, I can barrel through it. That's the thing. Like I can get out there. I
After
might
some
look like a
time,
wreck, but like
yeah.
I can barrel through it even though
Well,
it
that's
The-
an I. That's part of your
The
I.
initial thing
Maybe.
though, like when it does happen, it just breaks and it's just horrible. You just feel absolutely like crap.
Yeah, it's not fun, and it doesn't go away right away either. It always takes a little bit. It
Yeah.
lingers for a
It
little while.
lingers. It gets
Even when
better,
you feel
but
like you're
it
moving on, you
lingers.
still have that like little bit, just a little bit, just hanging there
Yep.
for a little bit, and it does. It carries with you for a while.
All right, well, you guys, thanks. That was really good. My soulmate is the Myers-Briggs, so that's what I got going for me.
Dope.
So, all right, well, thank you very much for doing episode 2.